Straight run up.
Now he angles it somewhat. Barkadash!
Where do I start? It's been up and down.
I remember being a kid.
I can see that happening.
That's something, there's always something to do. Be unlaced.
Unlaced podcast. It's actually not bad.
Welcome back, everyone. First off, just want to acknowledge and thank all our subscribers, all our listeners, all the people liking every episode and sharing it. You guys are the absolute best. I implore anyone listening, if you haven't already, please give us a subscribe. It means the absolute world to us. And you get to listen to awesome conversations like the one we're going to have today with Bulldogs superstar Jong, mate, fresh into retirement. It's been a bit of a whirlwind last 12 months for you, I imagine. How are you?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks. It's a loose term of the word superstar, but it's been good, mate. Honestly, it's a weird feeling to describe, but it's a huge weight off the shoulders, and I think I was definitely the right decision in the end, and the way I've been feeling, sort of, obviously in lockdown, a bit bored, but the way I've been feeling, I know I made the right decision.
Oh, mate, I watched like a bit of your highlights this week, and Jesus Christ, mate, you have a screw loose, like running into packs, and like I know that stuff gets absolutely loved in AFL, but watching it, like even I don't even know you, but I was wincing at a few of the things that you ran into. Have you always been like that, or what goes through your head when you're doing stuff like that? And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking like genuinely not even seeing freight trains coming behind him and running with his back to the ball, all eyes on the footy, which is pretty special.
I'm actually surprised you found enough time to watch my whole highlight.
2 minutes long.
No, but that's sort of that's how I sort of grew up playing, and I think that was sort of how I sort of made a name for myself, sort of early days at the club, to a point where I had a chat with old ruckman Will Minson, and he sort of pulled me aside and said, "Mate, like we think you're like it's really brave, but it's a little bit like it's a fine line between stupidity and courage," and so started after that chat, had to look after the body a bit and not go after that many balls.
I'm not surprised, man, because it's pretty impressive. Like, I was a little bit shocked actually, because I knew you were brave, but then I watched it and I was like, something like even in your initial games, it's like Jesus Christ. I feel like the senior boys would love that. I think initially that would have like got you some respect in the change room, I imagine.
I think so. Like I was awful in my first year, honestly. I played more in the VFL twos than the actual VFL, and we had so many injuries and we were going horribly in the season, and so I was gifted a game. Didn't earn it. But then when I played better in the AFL than I did in, say, the VFL twos. I guess you had all this adrenaline running, and I had nothing to lose, and yeah, I just coincidentally made a good impression, I think, and that was sort of kick-started, I guess, or gave me some sort of a foundation to work off that.
Did you find it harder playing in the twos? Because I, not so much maybe from a motivational standpoint, but I always found with soccer, because that's my background, you always played better with better players, like naturally just raise your level. So I always used to find it hard playing in the Magoos because it was just different motivation, obviously one, and then you're playing on a different kind of environment, different players. The footy's not hitting your chest, it's hitting your neck, little things like that. Did you find it harder?
Yeah, it's funny. There's actually some players that play better in the AFL than they would in the VFL just because, it could be the type of player they are and whether the ball used to them is a lot better. But I did sort of find that, especially early, especially running around the VFL twos, you got no confidence. You're an AFL listed player playing in the VFL twos, playing alongside, people who, not even they're just there to fill in numbers and things like that. But I think sort of once I got a bit older, and if you play on ball in the twos, it's a lot easier to play there than. Yeah, and obviously in the AFL, and you're probably stuck on a forward flank. You're not really getting that on ball time, but yeah. So it was a bit different for me. I enjoyed playing on ball more in the VFL, and then got pushed out to a wing eventually once the kids come through.
No, I've made pretty bloody good kids, and we're going to jump into. I want to just get a bit of your assessment now, because obviously when this comes out, luckily there's 2 weeks away, so the doggies will still be in the grand final, and we still won't know who's won. But are you like a little bit surprised that they made it? Did you think that they would? I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but like, I mean, I think they've had a great run home, and probably like people probably would have predicted Port Adelaide could have probably won that as well. So, I mean, did the Inner Sanctum think that they were going to go this far this season?
Well, I guess it was funny. I used it as a running gag to a couple of my mates. Once I retired, we lost 3 in a row. But obviously lost a couple of key players. So I'll admit, from my personal point of view, it was pretty nervy times. I think if we, coming into that Essendon final first, as a fan for me, I was like, if we get knocked out here, it's such a failed season. It's such a waste of a season with how we were going, how we went. And then I guess once we got to Brisbane, it's sort of like, I think we've done all right to get to this point. I think we go one more step and it's like, yep, all right, I'm quite content. And that was one of the all-time wins.
It was.
And honestly, against Port, I had my doubts just with all the travel and everything stacked against us, and Port had the home game.
Literally the home crowd. Yeah.
And then for them to come out like that in the first quarter, I was a bit shook. Like, I'm still in a bit sort of disbelief that we're in the granny.
Yeah.
And
then they put their foot on their throat as well. It was like once Port had a tiny sniff, and I'm talking like a 6-goal buffer, then Doggies kicked like 3 in like 5 minutes again. It was like, oh, game over.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of like there's been a little bit of a knock that we could do it against the lower teams, and then struggle to compete with the top end. But to sort of witness that, to do that against Port on their home deck, and you could barely hear the crowd. It was just crazy. Like we just seemed to be clicking at the right moment.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because I think the lead up to these grand finals, the wins you've had, I mean, there's confidence is going to be sky high. If you look at Melbourne, and obviously the Demons have had an unbelievable year, what's the kind of real strength for them that you think could really be a tough matchup for the Doggies? Like something that the Doggies would have to be really conscious of going into the game?
Obviously their backs are best in the league.
Yeah,
with May and Lever and their intercepting ability. And then of course the midfield battle. It's pretty, it's very evident that sort of when we sort of lose it in the middle, we struggle a bit. But we got big Steph Martin back, and that'll help compete against Max Gawn. And then it's as I guess a fanboy now, it's going to be exciting to watch the mids go head to head with them.
Bloody oath, because they're probably the two of the best midfields in the comp, and everyone knew the Bulldogs were stacked in the midfield coming into this year with a couple of the trades as well. We go into a little bit around, I guess, the more recent time of Lin Jong. I mean, you're a 10-year player in the AFL. Like, I know you're going to play it down as like your 65 games, this, that, but like the average lifespan of an AFL footy player is pretty short. So somehow you've grinded out 10 years miraculously. You must have been a good bloke off the field as well.
I think that got me an extra 2 years of being a good guy. But it is like, it's so weird to sort of think, I made it to 10 years. I remember still, because you go through sort of, your development stages and meetings when you're a younger player. And like they do tell you, I think the average lifespan is maybe 5 or 6 years. And I remember sitting there as a first or second year player saying, I'm not going to make that. I'd be lucky to make it to 6. I'll be so happy to make it to 6.
Oh, really? So you were selling yourself short initially?
So I was no confidence. After my second year, I had my exit interview. It's pretty daunting. You sit sort of at the table. It's almost a round table, and you've got 15 blokes in there. Some who wouldn't even have anything to do with your season, and they just sort of review your season. And I got told at the end of mine, half the blokes in the room wanted me gone, half of them wanted to keep me, and I'm lucky to be here. And
as in these are all coaches.
Coaches. Right? Brendan McCartney told me that straight up, and I was
why? Like, why was there a split?
Maybe it did. I'll tell you what, it did motivate me, but I was pretty. Can you swear on this?
Yeah.
I was shit. I was shit.
And, what, footy player or like so?
Well, that year particularly that year, I broke my leg. So I mean, I would have thought that was a fair excuse. But then for him to tell me that, it did kick me into a bit of shape. But I was pretty. I cried afterwards because I was sort of, you don't
reality
want to hear that
check,
as a second year player. But but then yeah, that did honestly give me the motivation to sort of be like, I've got to pull my head in a bit and just train harder. Do a bit more in the preseason, do a bit more in the off season, and sort of got me going.
We'll definitely go through the 10-year career in some depth because it's been a hell of a roller coaster. But just specifically to now, I mean, retirement, like what was the real reason that sort of pushed it? I know it's been sort of blown up in the media, obviously your retirement and stuff, but what was the kind of real reason for you?
I guess, last year I did my syndesmosis and I missed the whole season from that. Usually it's a 8-week injury and I just couldn't get it right. I don't know what was happening with it. I ended up coming back to play my first AFL game since I took some time off from mental health, which it was pretty significant for me, and I got that taste for it again. I'm like, I want to keep going because I did lose that love for footy. And then I was like, I want to go on for one more year. I don't want to finish in the hub. Like, it was pretty shit. Coming into my 10th year, I actually said to myself, this probably be my last because I'm pretty exhausted mentally, physically. Obviously, the body's been through a heap, and then once I did that hamstring injury, I tore my hamstring, and it's like, all right, I can get back towards the end of the season, and all I want to do. And at that point, I was coming off the ground, getting helped off. I said, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore. This is it. And then for me, up to there, I was like, I want to play one last game in any capacity, whether that's a VFL, AFL, it would be a dream, but I want to finish with a good memory and finish on the field, but
not on a stretcher kind of memory.
I didn't want that to be my last ever game of, AFL or whatever. I couldn't get the hamstring right. We ran out of time to let it heal, and it wasn't healing that great. And so I decided to call it time because I didn't want to keep churning out through rehab, going through those mental demons every Saturday morning, and you're watching the boys win, which is great, but it's tough when you're missing out and you're injured. It's bloody tough. But that was it. That was the final call. Once I knew I couldn't make that last game, which is all I wanted, that was it for me. Yeah, there's no more motivation for me, even though that was like.
You mentioned something that's interesting to me because there's a couple of things I want to go into, but specifically the comment around like because being injured is a fucking lonely place. Like, there's no doubt about it. It sucks. You've almost got to work harder mentally, even though your body's not moving at the same capacity. Like, mentally, you're working so much harder because when you go home, then you're icing, you're doing all this other stuff. You can't move, can't go out and see people. You got to stay on the couch, whatever. But the comment around like when you see the team winning and you're in that position, like, can you give me the perspective maybe what some of the boys are going through now who aren't going to be playing in the grand final? And obviously, you kind of got to be that spirit and like good for the boys, but like, I don't care what anyone says. If you're an athlete, there's a bit of competitive demon that's like thinking, fuck this. Like, I fucking hate my life these next 2 weeks because like it's not validating that you're not needed, but you're not in the window of what you're dreaming of. You're sitting on the sidelines, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and even speaking to a mate about this, he used to say that like when he played local footy, he used to play in the reserves and sort of think, I hope the ones lose so I can have a go on the ones. And as an athlete, I think if anyone that's played sport and you're an athlete and, there's been ones and twos, like people are selfish by nature.
Yeah.
And so obviously the boys up there, 100% they're so happy for their friends, their boys, and watching them go through. But 100% they're all envious, jealous as hell.
Yeah.
Wishing that was them. It's just an unspoken thing.
It's an awkward spot to be in.
Yeah,
because like you do actually want them to win. But at the same time, you're like, well, fuck, then I'll always remember that moment. It's like I didn't play when they did.
Yeah,
as well.
and I've sort of, like, I missed out on the...
You've been through that.
Yeah, on the 2016 one, and I've sort of been a bit more vocal about it now because I've mentioned how a change in mindset is so helpful and sort of healthy for your own self. But I'm so glad I'm not up there because I'll be pulling my hair out.
Could you have gone through two? Two.
I think I wouldn't have even made the second one, so that would have been a bit easier. But
yeah.
But the first one was a bit different because I think I put my hand up and it wasn't to be. But yeah, it would be a tough time emotionally, I think.
One of the things that I've heard you speak about, which I actually relate to you a lot, and you probably don't really know my background with soccer, but this was one of the things I fucking struggled with. It was like, and especially coming out of soccer at a young age, like playing elite level soccer, which is one of the mantras of why this podcast started, was I used to always take my performance on the field off the field. Like, so if I was the best player on the field, fuck, I was everyone's best mate. I'd be on the phone to everyone laughing, happy as Larry. If I played shit, I was a prick, absolute prick, just because I was like, it defined me. So when I came out of the game, my identity was fucked because that soccer, like what I was good at, wasn't there anymore. So then my self-esteem and everything dropped. Did you have similar, like when you, because you've spoken about this and you've actually said that yourself, like for you, like what do you mean by that when, I guess your footy performance was aligned to you as a person?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it in everyday life, you know, when you do good things, you're happy with yourself. If you do something stupid, you're not happy with yourself, and then when you put that into, I guess, a sport environment, you know, and it changes your mood, it changes who you are, it changes your identity, and it's so volatile because, you know, obviously it's pretty hard to be consistent at the top level and play well every time, and therefore your mood's just going to go roller coaster up and down. And if your mood's like that, then how are you supposed to play, you know, well consistently? So I did find that, I guess, a big challenge in separating myself from who I am as a person as to who I am as a player, which are two different things, you know. And then, like you said, like you know, you could be bubbly around the clock. Like you played a really good game, you're bubbly throughout the week, and then you play a bad game, and then you're just in your shell again, which shouldn't be like that. But
Of course,
but
it's
it
hard
is.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah. If we go into your journey, we touched on 10 years in the AFL. Now, so you got picked up in the rookie draft back in, was it 2011?
2011. Yeah.
2011. Did you know you were going to get picked up?
I did. I only had one interview for the national draft, and that was with Collingwood. And then they passed on me. But then I had sort of 4 more interviews in the rookie draft, and Collingwood said, "Yep, we're going to take it with our first pick." So, and sort of like low key, can you just, you know, whatever with his other, like, yep, I'm going to get picked up by Collingwood. Like, this is amazing.
Oh, so so they were kind of telling you don't speak to anyone else. We'll pick you up.
Yeah,
Is
or
that what
just
they
like
said?
don't, you know, just blow your interviews, whatever.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then I met with the Bulldogs last and met with Brendan McCartney, the head coach, and they didn't make any mention of picking me up. Like, obviously you interviewed, but they weren't like, yep, we're going to take you. And they had picked 9, and I think Collingwood had picked 17 or something. So I was entirely expecting to go to Collingwood. So it was a nice surprise seeing the name pop up on the laptop. And I think, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, yeah. I still remember. Like I told my friend, and we had a slab of beers. I'm like gonna get drafted, and then ended up at Bulldogs. So,
That's ridiculous.
and then was there for 10 years. So there you go.
I swear Fletcher's got a similar story too, because when he was on, he was talking about how he did a preseason with Melbourne or something, or played in like an intra club and dominated, and like, mate, we're going to pick you up, and then just out of nowhere, the Bulldogs, like, I think then one person might have said something to him or whatever, and then they just picked him up. So
Yeah, he did. He did the preseason with Melbourne, and he missed out on schoolies, idiot.
yeah, he didn't even go there.
I remember I was on schoolies and got a call from Adelaide. And like, can we do an interview with you? And I was sort of like, it's going to have to wait till next week because I'm at schoolies. So.
I feel like that's a common phone call they make to a lot of rookie drafters.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
No, if we go in, because I just want to go into a bit of like your background and nationality, because I know there's been Asian footballers that have played in the AFL before, or Asian background, but I think you were the first like Australian/East Timorese, Taiwanese player to play in the AFL.
Might be the only one ever.
Yeah, I was going to say it's quite the mix. But like, I mean, when you came in with obviously that background, like how was that, I guess, taken in by your teammates and stuff? And it's not to kind of, you know, throw a racism card at all or anything, but obviously like there's a completely different view of, you know, different colours and different shapes and sizes. And there's not too many, you know, Africans playing in the AFL. There's not too many Asian guys. I mean, how was that coming in for you?
Like, I guess no one made a point of it, but the reality was I was different. I did have a different upbringing. I didn't play footy my whole life. I didn't, you know, have, you know, this or that, which I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about, like, you know, I just wanted to be treated like anyone else. But but I did feel, and I knew I was different to everyone else, which wasn't addressed because maybe it didn't need to be, but I guess, in my own self, and in my own head, it was sort of like, I'm the only one who looks like me that's playing AFL anyway.
Yeah.
Which can sort of either, make you feel really proud or sort of make you feel a bit different. And not an outcast, but just that the thought of being different, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Did you? So I mean, like when you look back on it now, it's pretty fucking cool. If you ask me,
Oh,
like, holy fuck.
Now that I've had time to reflect and I'm older, it's and especially for my parents and to know how proud they are of me. Like I got a letter from the Prime Minister of East Timor congratulating me on playing my first game.
No way.
Which is pretty, like, when I was 18 or 19, I was like, oh, like, yeah, cool. Like, I just want to play footy, whatever. And now when I look at it, and especially for my dad, it's just like it makes me so happy that they're so, happy for me and proud of me, and probably means more to them than to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So if you went to East Timor, you'd practically be God. Like, you get a different set of treatment, I'm sure.
I've been there before, and because they're all about 5 foot.
Yeah,
I look a bit like one, but
where did you get your height from then, based off that? Like, who's because you're quite tall. Like,
it's from Dad. He's about 6 foot, I'd say.
What are you? 6'1"?
6'2".
6'2". Yeah,
we'll call it 6'3".
Yeah,
Actually.
6. Yeah,
but mum's tiny. She might be like 5'3" or something like that. So
okay,
it's definitely
gotcha.
from Dad.
If we go into, because obviously you came into the Bulldogs where there was a bit of a transition. I mean, you mentioned the first few years with Brendan McCartney, and then obviously Luke Beveridge came in. I'm keen to understand like what the culture's like there, because a lot of what's put out in the media and obviously the success you see, you'd think that there's a pretty strong culture in it, and everyone seems to be quite fond of each other and obviously winning a flag and so forth. So are you able to elaborate on like what the inner sanctum was like that obviously we didn't get to see?
I guess, after 2014, so going into the 2015 season, we lost our captain, we lost our coach, and so that was all sort of a big change. And I think early days, and no disrespect to the club or the players there, but it wasn't the most welcoming or friendly like it is now, where I mean that in the sense that there was a lot of groups. There was older guys who, stuck with the older guys, and the young, sort of the middle age, stuck with them, and it was just like you had your groups and that was it. I barely had any friends in my second year, I barely had any friends at all. Yeah. Whereas now, you come to the club and it's so well, like everyone talks to everyone. There's no hierarchies. The Bont and Jack McRae are two, best players, whatever, will talk to anyone on the list. It's not like anyone thinks they're above anyone or anything like that. And for me, like personally, I could get a coffee with any of the blokes on the list. I could sit down and have a chat with them. Yeah,
like you can still say that now after leaving the club. Like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and yes, you still have your groups and you gravitate towards people naturally, and that's how it is. But it's so different to what it was, and you can't fake that stuff. Like you can't be like, oh hey mate, do you want to get a coffee? Like just for the sake of it, because I want to look like a leader or something like that. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's like the old. Would you get a coffee with him? Yeah. Would you get a beer with him? Yeah. So it's
that's pretty cool.
Both tests,
Do you think? Yeah, more so the latter.
I think the test is actually would you let him look after your puppy? But we'll call it a beer.
Yeah, we'll call it a beer. But do you think that's actually like helped the on-field? Like, is that translated at all?
I think so, but it's something that you can't measure. It's hard to measure because how are you supposed to know what a friendship off the field can do for you on the field?
Correct. That's a good call.
And maybe it's just that we're all on a connected level. Maybe the feedback you give, you're not spraying a bloke around. What the fuck are you doing? Instead, it's like because they're your mate, you can talk to them properly.
Yeah.
And it's just it's who knows, but obvious like there must be something that correlates between having being sort of close off the field and then to your on-field performance.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it's true the way you put that. You don't always need to be best mates off the field to play together. Like as long as there's a respect, like or whatever. Bevo, like obviously as the coach, he's been pretty successful since he's come in. He's obviously had to make some tough calls on players, but also he's got a pretty elite squad. But I'm just keen to understand what your relationship was like with him throughout that whole journey that you went on.
Yeah, we were fine. Like no qualms. We wouldn't chat all the time or anything along those lines.
Is he a chatty guy? Is he kind of always man to man, like that man management aspect about him?
Yeah. Like
he's like that.
Yeah, I if I were to give you an example, when I was at Whitnoyville walking down the hallway, I'd see Brendan McCartney and I'd be shitting myself. And I'd honestly be like, is he going to say hello? Do I say hello? Like, what do I do?
I hate those coaches,
I
man.
think a couple of times I'd say, hey,
Those
Mac,
coaches suck.
Yeah, hey,
man.
Mac, how are you? Just nod his head, say nothing. But with Bevo, like, it's just like, it's pretty breezy. It's like, you're just going to be like, g'day, how you going, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it was like, I've always gotten along with him. Like some players are closer to him, and it's just, as I mentioned before, that's just, the nature of life. And but yeah, I've always had a healthy relationship with him.
Is he got a huge influence on the Doggies team, like in regards to like how they play, they set up, or is it really like an element of you guys have just got that many good players that it's just kind of helped his also coaching kind of stigma get sort of more praise, or is he actually just like a super coach?
I think originally when he first came in, he sort of gave us this license of freedom and to sort of, and he just backed us in like it wasn't like, we got to tag this guy and this guy, we got to change this setup to beat this team. It's just like, let's just do our thing, and then if that stacks up against them, then let's do that. And along the journey, it's become a lot more player driven. Now it's like, it's like you do this when you have the ball in hand. It's like you do what you feel is right, and then maybe it works. Maybe we can, if you're doing it too much, we'll give you some feedback. But it's very much now player driven, and it's up to the person, say with the ball, they can make the decision. It's not like kick down the line every time. And, there might be instructions to do certain things, but mainly just empowers the players, and that's what I find is the best thing.
I agree.
As a player coach, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Given the nature of the squad and like the elite quality you have, obviously across the midfield and all these young players that keep coming through as well, the Bulldogs, like it's just turning into a machine. Like the number one draft pick is not even in the squad, probably going to be in the squad for the grand final, which is pretty crazy. But like who in your eyes that you played or trained with, and it might not be the obvious, but that you just thought they're just a cut above everyone else, or you like really admired for their ability or how they went about it?
I still like the easy picks, obviously Bont. Like still remember early days, and especially every preseason we'd come back to. It's just like the boys would talk and be like, he's gone like another level up. Like what the hell is going on?
Is he just training the house down in the off season, or is he just naturally
works,
evolving and maturing quicker?
Works. One of those guys, like he works so hard. Like he's in the club first, working hard, working with young guys. Then we'll leave last. Like one of those sort of
genuine.
Not to be cliche, but yeah, one of those ones.
Yeah.
And then I guess Baz Lanka when he first came in, absolute beast. Like,
did he get in trouble? Was it by the club or for kind of overtraining or like
he just got
too much?
He got told. He just got told to train and just if you follow the program, you're going to be fit enough. Like, don't worry about.
So he was doing extras just to. That's amazing.
And it's just like it's all in like it means well, but like it might have had to miss a training session here or there because he's run 10Ks on this day instead of he should have done 6 or whatever.
Right.
So he was an absolute beast when he first came in, and trying to think of other blokes that came in after me, and then you got I guess Jack McRae, and then
he's a freak.
Yeah, because he's more because he was more unassuming. You look at him like, how is he a footballer?
Yeah.
And so I'm very good mates with Jack, and we still joke about it. It's just like you look at him and you're just like, what the fuck? Like,
how are you racking 35, 40 every week?
And he just doesn't. He's consistent. He never gets injured, and he just does the same shit.
He's got a bit
week.
of a librarian vibe to him.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. So I guess those 3 blokes were probably made a big impression. Usually, I guess when I was at the club, and then usually in training sessions and whatnot.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, because you look at like people like Bailey Smith now. I don't think he's missed a game since he started. So it kind of shows
that's
the harder you work, the
honestly
luckier you get
crazy,
and stuff like that. There's a funny thing that I don't know if it was you that started or you walked into the Bulldogs around, but I kind of loved it. I just thought it was good banter. But essentially, there was a kind of tiering of socioeconomic in the change room based off the number you had on your back. And I just wanted for you to elaborate on that because everyone knows, Lin Jong, you're pretty famous. And you touched on this actually recently, but you're pretty famous for the number 46. And so much so you even turned down, I think it was Ryan Griffin's number. Was it Ryan Griffin?
Yeah,
when he left?
16,
yeah, 16.
Yeah.
And he was the captain, right? So you turned down that to keep the number 46, which is...
I don't think the fans would have been happy if I took 16.
But, like, can you go into the background of the change in the socioeconomic sort of brackets you guys are putting yourselves in?
Yeah, well, so the locker room's different now to when I started, but it used to be, say there was sort of 3 different sort of areas. You had the 1 to 12, 13 to, say, 30, and then 30 to 50 or whatever. And it was sort of like you couldn't talk to, like I couldn't see anyone except for the blokes in between like 30 to 40 something.
Right.
And then the blokes in the middle could only see, like, you had to walk towards that area.
Right.
So it was all sort of tiered, like, and as you sort of alluded to, we made a gag. It was sort of a bit of a gag that, obviously the blokes in the higher numbers aren't probably the best, the better players, and then the blokes that are obviously
the lower numbers,
the top tier, which is Turak in Melbourne. So,
so wait, 1 to 12 was known as Turak.
Yeah. I guess take that as you will, but it's
it's golden.
It was just the rich street, and then you had your middle class. I didn't really know what suburb to liken that to, but we just called it middle class.
Yeah.
And then we had the Bronx, the shit kickers, the blue collar workers, sort of things. And I like it was now because now it's a completely open locker room, so you can see everyone and I think they made a point in changing that up.
Oh really?
Yeah. Well, honestly, like if I sat at my locker, I can see everyone now. Like now, and then back then I couldn't see. I could only speak to the blokes in the 40s.
So they've given you the number 46, and they've also put you in an environment where you actually can't see or talk to anyone that's number 1 to 30 as such.
Basically, yeah.
That's not good for confidence, I reckon. Like, someone's going to have a word to the bloke who set that infrastructure up.
Yeah. Well, luckily they've changed it now. So I like now my locker would be like closer to 1 now. So it adds, like, I could speak to him and Matt Suckling for him. So it's a whole lot different now.
What did you find the hardest about playing AFL footy? Like, what was maybe the obvious? It could be the obvious, but it could be something most people might not think of. But
I think for me, I struggled a lot with anxiety, and to a point where going into training, I would be anxious about training, like and fucking up. This was when I was younger, but. And that was with Brendan McCartney, and it was pretty bit. He was a different coach, and
was it based off the coach, or was that you kind of just putting that on yourself?
A little bit of both. Like I was and coming into the AFL, I was a really shit kick, like because I only started playing footy when I was 15, so I played for 3 years, and then I'm in the AFL system, and I'm
you're bound to shank a couple.
Yeah, and I was a fucking terrible kick, and so I was like, I don't want the ball in my hands, like and all that kind of shit with training and the stress. It's just stress, like I couldn't sleep nights before and things like that. Yeah. And then I guess, and then early days, game day is just the best part of it because you can just go out and play.
Yeah.
And then later on when it became more serious to me and I took it more seriously, that was the most stressful part, playing the game, which comes naturally to some guys. But for me, it was always fucking... Like, I used to have this mindset. It's just like I used to put so much pressure on myself. It's like I have to fucking play well. I'm going to get dropped. So that I used to struggle with that a bit mentally. Like I always said, sort of later on, pre-season's the best time because you just train. There's no pressure for games. There's no pressure for that kind of stuff. You're just getting fit, and that's pretty much it. Did
you struggle with like the expectations maybe? More so that was coming from yourself, like playing footy games, or was it more the external sort of expectations put on you that you felt were just fucking with your head a little bit?
I think more so for me, because it was a mix, because I'm not the most confident person. I wasn't the most confident player. Yet I had the aspirations to be, I wanted to play AFL every week. And then when it's not delusional, but when you like the reality is if you're not, I guess, the most confident player, and then you've got ridiculous aspirations that you'll never live up to, really, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And not to say like that I lowered my expectations and things like that, but it's just like I just became more real with where I was at as a player.
Yeah.
And that came with sort of growing up and maturing, I think.
Fair. Yeah, because my biggest enemy was myself all the time, and I think a lot of players are like that. If we go into the 2016 AFL campaign, because obviously that was the year the Bulldogs won, and I think probably my sentiment around that time, and I could be wrong, but not many people probably were ticking the Bulldogs as the ones that were going to win that flag at the start of the year. It might have been an internal belief, but I was keen to get the inner sanctum expectations on that season and what the sort of feeling was. Like, were you guys really going to win it that year? Did you guys think you were in a window with the squad you have? Like, what was the expectations there?
Yeah, I think I guess like going along through the season, it was like we're expecting to make finals because we did the year before and we missed out on making it past the first final by a few points, and sort of along the way in the season, it's just about week after week, that real cliche, but that's what that's the reality of it. And then once it's like you get to the point where you're in finals, then the sort of the narrative changes. And yeah, I remember Matt Boyd got up and spoke to the group and it's sort of like one of those, why not us? Like, obviously there's heaps of excuses, we're young, we're this and that, but then it's just like, why not us? And and he made mention, I remember it, because he made mention of the group that we had there and how it was the best team he's played with and whatnot and this and that. And he played in those prelims and stuff. And
he'd been there for ages too.
Yeah, and I remember because that was a big moment because I was tossing up leaving the Bulldogs after that season, and I was like, geez, if Matt Boyd's saying that, that's a pretty fucking big deal.
Yeah.
And so I guess, after that point, it was sort of like once we got past West Coast in the first final, it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
like,
game on.
Yeah. And it was just like, well, if we beat West Coast at West Coast.
Which is unbelievable.
We can just who says we can't win and whatnot.
How was your season that year, like your form? Because obviously I want to go into the first final, which I think was against West Coast, where, the unfortunate happened. But how was your form overall that year? Were you in and out of the squad? Were you playing much consistently?
I was. I think. At the start, I was in and out a little bit. I thought, it was. I thought I was personally stiff to get dropped in the first place. I think I had 17 touches and a goal. But I must have been doing something wrong. And so went back to the VFL. I think I played 4 games in the VFL that year, and was like I was really confident playing in the VFL. And then I guess once I got back in the squad, I ended up getting a 3-week suspension actually.
Right.
Just a bad sort of bump. And then once I got back in, that was, I think I played sort of the last 12 games.
Okay, so you had a run, but
and I was probably at a point where I was safe with my position, and I wasn't going in every week thinking, geez, I need to play well, I'm going to get dropped.
Right.
And then towards like the end of the season, like I was starting in the midfield because we had players go out who like Jack McRae and Libba who got injured. And then I think last game of the season, I had sort of a career high in disposals and was really confident in myself. And then started in like on ball in the first bounce against West Coast.
Holy shit!
Which is probably would have made way eventually for Jack McRae or something like that.
Well, still take it off.
But to think that and so that was it was probably I think it was my second best season of my career.
Yeah. Was like, do you still look back? Are you a bit heartbroken around how that ended? Because obviously, for those that don't know or are listening, you broke your collarbone. Was it in the first final? Was it away at West Coast?
Yeah.
Which, remarkably, there's a story of how you came back and played in the VFL Grand Final.
I don't know what to talk about.
Yeah, no. Well, it's been well broadcasted enough. But like they're just going off. Like obviously missing the GF. Like does that still hurt today, or are you kind of comfortable with how that ended?
I like early day, like it hurt a lot. I probably didn't process it properly. And then, but it was a huge motivating factor for me going into 2017, which was my sort of career, my best sort of season career wise. And then, I guess, like it still hurts a little bit, just sort of seeing, knowing you weren't part of that 20. Like, yeah, you're part of the squad.
When it wasn't like really based on ability, because you would have been if you were fit, probably, right?
Which is like what I like to think. If obviously we win the prelim, like who are you going to drop? Honestly,
Yeah, they can't drop a prelim.
And then I think sort of it just hurts a bit because I played 16 games in the season and I got nothing to show for it, sort of thing. Even though you're part of it and whatnot, which is why I'm actually a big advocate for. Just give everyone some sort of something sentimental.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I do not. I don't give a shit about this season, but like, how's Josh Bruce not going to get anything?
Yeah,
if we win?
it sucks.
It doesn't make it. I'm going off topic here. Sorry,
But I think it's I don't know if I think it's one of the only sports that does it like that.
I think so. Well, even like NBA,
they all get rings.
I know in the EPL, I think you have to play 15 games out of 35.
Maybe
something along those lines. But in the NBA, you all get rings. Doesn't matter if you sit on the bench. And even like as players, they're flying up there. The boys are training still. They're doing a whole lot of shit.
See, I'd like my perspective is who's making that decision, because I reckon you ask the 22 blokes playing like, hey, would you guys care if the Jong has a no? No one would give a fuck.
Yeah.
So who's making that call if no one cares? It's some bloke in the AFL that just generally doesn't understand that. Well, there's a bunch of blokes that it takes to get there.
Yeah, and obviously I'm biased, but
yeah, I'm a bit biased too though, because I think it's a bit. You're right with the Josh Bruce situation.
But the squad should like blokes. You need people to train with. You need blokes to, who knows what kind of effect this bloke has with this guy off the field. He might help him so much, and then you've got nothing to show for it, sort of thing. But there should be. I get there's 22 on the field. You win, you get the medal and stuff. But then what about the assistant coaches who help?
Yeah, I know.
Who help Bont every day, like Stephen King, who helps Bont every single day. Like just like things like that.
So none of the backroom staff get a medal. Just the main coach.
No, I think and I mean I think in 2016, I think we got a poster or some shit.
Wow, fucking painful.
Which is all right, but it
something
probably hurts me more to keep it. Honestly,
I was just going to say that would be more of a stab. The next year though, like if we go past that, because obviously the Bulldogs won, it was miraculous. But the next year was a bit of a contentious one for you because, I think you were in a bit of a potential trade window, and was it Collingwood and maybe Gold Coast, a couple of clubs that were pretty keen on having you. You touched on obviously Matt Boyd's convo that maybe kept you around, but how close were you to leaving that period?
Well, I was Matt Boyd's speech, as I said, was pretty made me think a lot about.
So were you having these chats with these clubs around that time? Obviously you're still playing because I assume that you would have to, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to
Yeah.
sort out.
I met up with Gold Coast as well mid-season.
Yeah.
That's it's what you do, sort of thing. They Gold Coast put a 3-year offer there, and a big part. I had a chat with my ex-partner now, but we were sort of tossing up whether
to
move to the Gold Coast is the right thing, or is it because of games? Because I'll back myself to get games, play games and stuff, and then the place, the club, and I'm so happy I started. I can sort of say, even though it might not seem like a big deal to some people, but I could have had more money going to different clubs, but I wanted to stay at the Bulldogs because that's just I love the Bulldogs, and that's again might not mean much coming from me because I didn't play as many games or whatever, but in myself I can say I played at the one club and I played over 10 years and I could have gone.
That's a huge thing in the AFL. I feel is this one club. There's I don't know if it's a branding thing or just the feel good factor, but because I come from other sports where no one gives a fuck. Unless you're playing for Man U or Man City, and you're going to go to the other team. Yeah. There's no one really cares about one. There's no such thing. Yeah. So when I come here with footy, it's a real big thing. So that's it. That's fascinating for me because you probably feel like better and standing on your own 2 feet that you made that decision, don't you? As well, it's kind of sticking there, or
Yeah, and now sort of like feel like I had sort of had an impact on the club, and I've made friends for life. Which is a typical thing to say, but yeah, and a big thing for me sort of to play on into my 10th season is I think you get life membership after 10 years of service. So
cool.
So I was sort of like, well,
why not?
if I could say that, like I was a Bulldog life member, that would fucking pretty cool thing to say.
Mate, I actually think you're going to be like a Bulldogs legend because like you've gone through a hell of a lot, and the way you played the game, and obviously career cut short for us, other reasons that somewhat out of your control really, which sucks. But the 2017 season, was that probably like your best year? I think was that the year after the year after the grand final.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said before, I've sort of used that motivation. I guess I'm missing out to get. I was super fit in the offseason. Come back in the preseason. I think I came second in our fitness test, and I'm not the fittest guy, and for me to do that was a pretty big deal. And then didn't play in the VFL at all that year, and was just sort of game after game, and I was pretty happy with how I was going. I think I was starting in the midfield, and then unfortunately did my knee that year, and then things sort of just went downhill from there, to be honest. And after I did my ACL, I never really could just string it along together.
Mate, that injury is for me changes people's lives. I don't know about you, but I've obviously been around people. I've never done it, obviously, so I can't speak to it. But it just even the rehab process, it just changes everything, like movement, confidence, functionality. The rehab at the length of time it comes back.
It was. Yeah, looking back, I think it was the toughest part, toughest rehab I've ever done. And I think what's sort of doesn't get spoken about enough is mentally when you come back to play when you've done an ACL. It took me so long to be confident in my knee and to shake that. Maybe it's just me, but to shake that sort of thought before games. It's like, geez, if I could do my knee again, I'll be out for the whole season.
Oh, really? So are you talking more coming from the mental of you don't want to get re-injured as opposed to you just feel out of whack playing footy again? Because
a bit of both, but the re-injury part played a huge part on mine. I kept going into games thinking that, and it's if you're going into games thinking about getting injured, again,
it's
what chance you have with your performance.
Especially when you play like you, mate, running into bloody steam trains.
Well, I lost confidence in going up for marks, aerially, it just changed a lot, and it took me so long to sort of just forget about it in a way, or just be able to just play without thinking about it.
Man, it's a pretty crazy story. For those that obviously have watched your career, I think they definitely admired how you went about it, and it's the unsung story of the athlete, mate. Injuries and business and the things you can't control that can get in the way of the career are always tough. But I mean, for you now, you touched on it a bit before the show, before we went on there. What's sort of the future for you? Do you have any other interests outside of footy? Have you always been sort of footy, or?
I think, I'm still sort of finding my feet a little bit. I think during footy, you get your hand held a lot towards in regards to sort of just do this and do that, and this is your schedule, and then now that it's just you've got this sort of freedom now. It's just shit.
Do you find it hard, or are you enjoying it? Because I found it. I'm not great when I don't have discipline. So I went off the rails when I didn't have it because I was fucking, I don't need to wake up.
Lucky you were in lockdown, I'd be fucked.
But you do because you're just not used to it.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting sort of journey. I love that freedom of just being able to do my own schedule and make my own days and weeks. But it also it's fucking scary because all I've known, I've gone out of high school where everything's regimented into football where everything's regimented, and that's been my life for the past 18 years.
Yeah, bro.
Essentially,
it's full on, man. Now I'll be honest. It took me 5 years.
Yeah.
5 years. I'm not trying to
Don't
scare
tell
you. I think but I was a bit younger. I think you got a better head on your shoulders and you already than I had. But it took me a while, man. Just because it was all I knew. And it's not that I wanted to be a footballer anymore either. I'm like you. I was content with it being done, but it was just how do you find the motor to get out of bed? So
yeah, I do look forward to sort of I guess what impact I can make sort of without that football identity. And
Fuck, it's cool though, right? When
Yeah.
you find that, or when that you'll be like, because you don't want to be known as Lin Jong, the footy player for the rest of your life.
yeah. I'll be interested to see how many friends drop from.
Yeah, maybe at the pub. You could still carry that weight there. But no, mate. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Like learning your story. Obviously, know Fletcher Roberts quite well, and he speaks about you as one of the best blokes going round, who's fancies himself a beer pong. So I will have to be the judge of that one day. But mate, really do appreciate it.
No, thank you, mate. I always appreciate you for coming on podcast. Like, I sort of learned something new about myself. I think every time I come on.
Do ya? What did you learn today? Out of curiosity.
I'm gonna have to reflect back, but like, I'll say something like, "Geez, I've fucking nailed that." But
good, mate.
No, it's been great. Mate.
No, awesome. Thank you. Cheers.